Gonna take a look at those power outage numbers. Do we have that full screen? Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay, I've been dying to know this because
we haven't had an update in a long time.
Blackout of information coming in. So statewide, 2.3 million people in the state of Florida without power. Duke Energy's reporting 480,000. FPL's got a whopping 1.1 million. OUC 41,000, and KUA has another 8,000. So again, statewide, well over 2 million people without power being reported right now.
Yeah, and that number is going to constantly be updated as dawn breaks on Thursday, and we see just the need that is out there. All right, we now want to take you to show you that video that we have in, because it is pretty impressive. Look at that. This is from Jennifer Starcher. Again, she's in Rockledge. She sent us this video, and it shows what appears to be a power flash you see right there. And you can see the heavy rains and wind with a sudden flash of that familiar blue light going out, and the lights are going out in the homes there. Power flashes are often caused by what we've been experiencing, those strong winds.
Anybody who was around for Charlie remembers those blue flashes that pepper the sky when those transformers blow.
And you hear it too. It's boom.
Loud, it's jarring, yeah. There it is. Again, pretty wild. Check out some other video we have. This is a viewer sent us from J Street and Narcoossee Road. This is in St. Cloud. This was around 12:30 a.m. You can see just how windy it was, and the rain pushed a tree down in this particular neighborhood here, and we have seen that quite a bit. We're going to see it a lot more as soon as that sun rises. Many of those big trees, after all that rain has just saturated the soil, and then that relentless wind, even though it wasn't crazy in many parts of our area, still it can batter a tree.
Yeah, but you know, the real telltale sign is every time we would go to a reporter, it would be calm, and then you'd go back, and then it would just whip up again. So it was constantly changing throughout the evening, and that's just the way storms are. You get those bands coming in, and you just never know what you're going to get. All right, we want to check in now with News 6's Ezzy Castro. She joins us now live this morning in Osceola County. Ezzy?
Hey guys, how are you? Good morning. And just like a lot of people right now, waking up to no power, right? That's us here where we are in Osceola County. I'm going to show you right here because I'm using my Pinpoint Weather app, which is what I've been using throughout the night. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, just like a lot of residents, you try to sleep through this, you really can't, because the winds were so strong last night, and that kept waking me up, and really you could not get a straight 6 to 8 hour sleep. You couldn't really do that. So this is where we are right now. You can see that blue dot. We're actually in between Kissimmee and St. Cloud, right off of 192. That's where we are right now. So you can see that there is a lot going on behind me. There's a lot of wind, a lot of rain. I know that Carolina Cardona was out here just a few moments ago reporting as well. And just like you guys were explaining, these bands, they come and go, right? So you can see the rain will stop for a little bit, but then it picks up really fast again. So one of the things that I did see yesterday as we were pulling into this residential neighborhood, people actually did board up some of their windows, and some of their shutters are up too. And you can see right over there, Josh, if you can zoom in right behind me. Yeah, you can see some of that house right over there. They have their shutters up. I can tell you, growing up in South Florida, that's what we did. Anytime it was hurricane season, our shutters were ready to go, ready to be placed in case of a storm. So that's very interesting that we saw that when we pulled in yesterday. But yeah, that's what's going on right now. And I'm going to toss it back to you guys. We'll be out here and we'll let you know more on these conditions.
All right, Ezzy Castro, thank you so much for that update.
Yeah, we're going to go to Seminole County. Sanford police are warning people about some of the road hazards that are in the city right now.
That's right. Right now, officers responding to power lines down on 4th Street and Palmetto Avenue. So that's in the historic district. And as people wake up, hopefully they won't be wanting to get around, but that could cause some issues out there.
Yeah. So they're dealing with another down power line not far away in a neighborhood on 4th Street and Elliott Avenue. They're asking people to just avoid these areas since it could possibly be dangerous.
And we're seeing reports of a tree down on 15th Street in Palmetto. In Sanford, police responded to this neighborhood on the corner of Gracious Age Church and Red Barber Park.
All right, we want to check in now with meteorologist Troy Bridges, who is keeping us updated on Ian's path, its track, and it is slowly dying. It's dying a death that's too slow for all of us.
Too slow. Yeah. How can we
Could it die a little faster, please?
Yeah, how do we do that? Yeah.
I don't know.
I wish we could. This is going to be continuing to push off to the north and to the northeast fairly slowly. We will get a new track as of 5 o'clock this morning, but really bottom line is we're seeing the center of circulation right now over Osceola County, mainly northern Osceola County, southern sections of Orange County. Eventually, this will be pushing up and off to the north and east. We are already seeing the bulk of the rain north of Osceola and north of Brevard counties as we show you this radar here. And notice that spin. It is still officially a hurricane force winds when you talk about that center of circulation, but I do think it's going to be downgraded by the time we get that new advisory out. Right now, though, as of the latest advisory, we have the winds at 75 miles per hour. That's talking about the center of circulation. We've been looking at a lot of our wind reports, our actual winds that are our wind reporting stations right now, and we're seeing mostly those tropical storm force winds, some gusts a little greater than tropical storm force, but not up to hurricane force, which is some good news. Still, tropical storm force winds enough to lead to damage, and again, more power outages possible. Of course, rain, the big concern with flooding, because this is moving so slowly and dumping all this rain. So we're going to show you where we're seeing the heaviest of the rain. I'm going to zoom in here, and where you're seeing these reds here, we're seeing a couple of inches, possibly 3 inches of rain an hour coming down, and because we're seeing the spiraling motion with the rain continuing over the same spots, again, especially for Orange County now, Seminole County, Osceola County, but again, it's mainly northern Osceola County as we're seeing a little bit of a break for central and southern Osceola County. Now, yes, you're getting some of that light rain, but the heavier stuff is into Orange and into Brevard counties, where we're seeing the red on up into Seminole County. So there you go for Winter Springs, Altamont Springs. Notice now we're getting a little bit more of that heavier rain pushing in to areas of Seminole County, and then back into Orange County. There's Winter Park, Orlando, Conway, Oak Ridge, University Park, where you're seeing these deeper reds. That's where the heaviest of the rain is coming down. And then there for Ocoee, there are those pockets of red here and there with a couple of inches of rain an hour coming down. So again, very heavy rain, and it's going to continue to add up. You see all these green polygons? Those are those flood advisories, because we will have flooding concerns for many of these spots where we've had the heaviest of the rain. And again, that's for Orange County on over into Brevard County, but back now down into Osceola County. Look at Kissimmee and on down south of Kissimmee. We're pinpointing some of that heavier rain where you're seeing some of the deeper reds here and the yellows on the screen. Again, back up to Oak Ridge and then back to the west into the Four Corners area, some fairly heavy rain. And then we zoom in off to the north and east of there, and you can see some reds here indicating, again, possibly up to 3 inches of rain an hour in these spots. The good news is we're not talking about lightning or big thunderstorms. We're not talking about those wind gusts up to hurricane force, even though technically this is still considered a hurricane. We do think that we're going to get that update, and it will be downgraded to at least a tropical storm, because most of the winds that we are seeing are tropical storm force gusts, with a few areas where the gusts are greater than tropical storm force, and then there's some sustained wind gusts at tropical storm force in a few pockets. But there you go. There's for Mims and Titusville, the deeper reds indicating those heavier downpours, 2 inches in most spots an hour where you're seeing the red. But again, there's some isolated pockets where we could have 3 inches of rain an hour. Taking a little bit farther north of there, Orange City to Deltona, in parts of Volusia County on up to DeLand, we're seeing more of that pocket here and there, a few pockets of those heavier downpours. Oak Hill, you just had a lot of heavy rain move right over you. Now we're seeing the green indicating some lighter rain for you. So that's how this works. We see these come in waves and spiraling bands, very heavy rain coming down, and then some breaks with some lighter rain, and then even some pockets where there's not much rain at all before another round rolls in. And that is why it's sort of training, as we say, over many of the same spots. Like a train goes over a train track, many of these areas of rain, these outer bands, actually inner bands, these bands of rains that are coming in are going on like train tracks, like the train on a train track over the same places. So there is a little bit of a break now after some of that heavy rain has just moved to the north of Cocoa. So Cocoa, you're getting a little break. Yes, there is some light to even some moderate rain just to your north, light rain just to your south as well for Rockledge, and then then back down to Cocoa Beach. We had some of that more moderate, even some heavy rain just now pushed to your north. Then down to the south for Patrick Air Force Base and for Satellite Beach, we're seeing some of that in the way of light rain down to Palm Bay, Grant Valcaria, as well as Mico. Most of it's fairly light, and that will be the trend, I think, for now, because we are seeing that center of circulation begin to lift north into Osceola County, and even eventually we'll see that center of circulation over Brevard County. So we'll see some lighter rain in many of these southern zones, and then the heavier stuff will remain for central and northern zones before we can push most of it up and out of the way. So for Palm Coast to Flagler Beach to Ormond Beach to Daytona Beach, Port Orange, and even New Smyrna Beach, we've got all these waves of heavier downpours moving onshore with that spiraling motion, that wraparound moisture and energy. And again, this has been the dirty side of the storm. When you look at that right front quadrant, it's all based on the movement of the storm. So it's been moving to the north and northeast. So as it's moved to the northeast, you look at that right front quadrant, and that's going to include some of these areas. But notice the heavier stuff, the more ragged storms. I mentioned ragged because if you see this farther off to the west, you see the greens and the yellows sort of looking calmer, not as much of a big ragged looking cell. Look how ugly these storms look. See how they're all just kind of jagged shaped, and then you look out here and it's more of a smooth look. Well, that's what we mean by this being the dirty side of the storm, because these are those storms that are likely to have the heavier rain, and they earlier had the potential of rotating. But again, that risk of tornadoes, that risk of rotation on that dirty side of the system is a little bit lower now. And again, that tornado watch did expire. I say that and we have an advisory, a beep going off, but that's probably just a reissue. We'll be watching for that. Probably a reissue on some of these flood watches and warnings that we've had. So as we show you this wider view, again, you see most of the bulk of the heaviest rain over central zones. That's Orange County, and then for central sections of Brevard County, stretching up to the north into Volusia County and even Flagler County. But again, as a lot of these jagged or the dirty side of the system, those storms begin to move on shore, they sort of smooth out a little bit. And I use that term because we see still the rain, but it's just not quite as heavy as it moves back on shore. Julie, do you have any new information coming in?
The flash flood warning for Osceola County was extended until 5:15. So like you thought, it was a reissue, and we can see again on that radar that that's exactly why that warning was extended, because we are talking about those heavy rain bands continuing to rotate around that center of circulation.
Let's talk about this, Julie. Let's stay together on the screen if we can and talk about, you know, we talk about that right front quadrant, and a lot of people are confused about that. It's that forward motion of the storm moving to the northeast, and so that's the region that we were concerned about most, even once it moves on land, for the severe threat and the tornadoes. And you can even see these still look jagged, but that risk of tornadoes is lower.
Yeah, a lot of people use the term the dirty side, but what it means is if you divide the storm into 4 relative to how it's moving. So that's the key, and relative to how it's moving. So that is where that tornado threat is. Our tornado threat, though, thankfully has diminished. We did have 1 confirmed tornado yesterday in southern Brevard County, but overall, as far as tornado warnings, we did pretty well with this system.
And that's the good news. We're not going to be dealing with that much of a risk of that. I think we're going to go back to you guys at the desk, but we'll have more information about those winds and as well as those rain totals that we've been dealing with. Again, the wind and the rain, the biggest concern for now, with most areas dealing with tropical storm force wind gust, at least some sustained winds at tropical storm force. Guys, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Julie.
Well, News 6's Maris Badcock has been riding out Ian in Polk County. I know she lost power at one point, and it's been probably an eventful day for her. She joins us now on the phone with the latest from there. Maris?
Hey everyone, yeah, we still don't have power here, and I gotta say, I think we're through the worst of it. I'm listening into the forecast and those radars now, but towards the end there, I think that might have been the worst of it for us. It was incredibly gusty. We were able to get out a little bit in a safe manner to try and get some video because we have been struggling to feed back images into the newsroom for you guys. I don't know, are you guys able to see some of that?
Yeah, we're looking at it right now, Maris.
So we have a ton of trees down. You know, I've I'm a native Floridian. I've seen enough of these hurricanes. I got to say, I think this might be the most trees down that I have ever seen from a hurricane. I mean, this storm was incredibly impressive. And the way, I mean, it shook the tree canopy. I mean, the only word that I can think to describe it is violently. There really was no other way to describe it. So we're still hunkering down here. I'm not sure if we're going to see another feeder band move through, but I feel like it's starting to act now how it did in the beginning. So kind of coming in waves versus that sustained wind and rain.
Maris, I don't know how much you've been able to move around Polk County there, but seeing all those trees down must be complicating things for when people wake up and they start to hit those roads.
I definitely think once daybreak hits, I would, issue a word, urge caution. Right now, one of the trees are blocking our entrance out, so we are going to have to get creative in terms of how we leave our safe house. We have some other ways out, so I don't think it'll be too much of an issue, but just the logistics that you're going to have to work through in order to, get to whatever you need to get to, whatever it is. I know that we checked in with the EOC. They are still primarily very concerned about the Peace River Basin area. That's the kind of area, it's very low-lying. I mean, we say over here, if you spit funny, it starts to flood over there. So when you're dealing with a hurricane of this size, I know that was a major concern for officials. And I think they have about 2,000 to 3,000 people in shelters right now. I believe that was less than Hurricane Irma. And I think they were expecting more. So it will be interesting to see if, there are calls for service for people who are stranded, especially in those lower lying areas, because this was such an impressive storm.
A lot of people after Charlie and Francis and Jean were driving around with chainsaws in the trunk.
Yep.
If you wanted to get anywhere after those trees fell down, that was the only way to do it.
And these are some substantial size trees too. You're seeing they're pretty mature looking, and it's a shame to see that kind of damage. And this is just in the dark. And as Matt just mentioned, once daylight breaks, you will be able to get a better idea of the scope of everything that has happened out there.
I know that we talked to you guys at the very beginning of our shift. We're kind of nearing the end of our 12 hours here. And if you guys remember, we showed you there was like a limb down that had already been taken down, and we showed you the tree canopy. I was unable to get a safe shot of it, but this before and after, before our shift, where we just had that one, relatively large limb, but, it was impressive. Compared to what is now down along the tree canopy, it's almost unrecognizable. It looks like the Vietnam jungle. Like, it looks like it's completely overgrown with vegetation. We couldn't even move through there. So when daybreak hits, that will be probably, we will be going out to get video and hopefully providing some before and after images.
It really sounds like a landscape-changing event in Polk County.
Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells was describing it as a generational storm. So, yeah. And it's living up to that every time we see the damage and destruction it has caused. Maris, thank you. Continue to stay safe, and hopefully you guys will get some sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to do that at the end of your shift here. We want to go check out a different part of Central Florida, part that might be a little more active at this hour. News 6's Eric Sandoval is live for us in Daytona Beach. And Eric, definitely some wind still whipping around you.
Yeah, you know what? We just started our 12-hour shift, and I got up, showered, dried off. Don't know why.
You didn't need to do that.
Apparently not. Whoa, I think you may have just seen a flash behind me. We're seeing the power flicker. Let me tell you where we are right now. We're in Daytona Beach. We're at the beach side. We're at the corner of Seabreeze Boulevard and Halifax Avenue. Right behind me is the Seabreeze Bridge. That is one of at least 3 bridges right now here in the Daytona Beach area that is shut down to traffic simply because of what you're seeing right now. The winds have really picked up here. And, you know, I think Troy and Julie can speak more to this phenomenon, but the buildings here are actually giving us a little buffer. We're not getting the brunt of it. But right across the street there, I think our photographer, Jim Cavanaugh, can show you those palm trees just getting whipped silly across the street. I have a little handheld wind monitor here. Where I'm standing, we're having sustained winds right now of about 15 miles an hour. Really not bad. It's your typical Florida storm. But across the street there where those palm trees are getting knocked around, that's sustained 35 miles an hour, and we're getting wind gusts of even more. The big fear right now is, of course, the power going out here. I was actually surprised when my alarm clock went off this morning and we still had power. I was able to turn you guys on and actually get caught up on what was happening around Central Florida. But as we made our way up Seabreeze Boulevard here just a few minutes ago, we were starting to see the transformers blow up in the distance. You could see those blue flashes that come from the transformers exploding. But again, since we got up and since we made it here probably within the last hour, the wind has really picked up and the rain is just starting to come in bands. So if you're in the Daytona Beach area, if you're in the Volusia County area, we're really starting to get those bands, and now really is the time just to stay inside and let us get wet for you. Back to you guys.
Might as well.
I mean, you're out there. So yeah, I saw your Twitter feed and you were posting about the transformers, and we're going to probably see a lot more of that happening, especially with this activity. It looks like it's picking up again. It's one of those bands we'll talk about.
Yeah. You can see it.
Yeah, and actually, you know, you guys were talking to Mike DeForest earlier, and you were hearing that hum or the sound that this wind is making every now and then. I don't know if it's the bridge that we're hearing, you know, going through the pylons, or maybe some of the sailboats across the street, but you're really starting to hear that ominous hum that almost sounds like a freight train coming through this area.
All right, Eric Sandoval, definitely still rough out there in Daytona Beach. Thank you very much. Want to get a look at our weather again, and Troy Bridges is in for us tonight. One thing we have in common, sir,
yes, absolutely,
is back many generations ago, we both used to work in Oklahoma, and tornado season around there is just a crazy, intense thing, which Troy was a storm chaser, and you would see those transformers just blowing up and putting that blue light into the sky.
And you know, Matt, you know, we would chase tornadoes there. I know, Matt, you would be doing the news and you'd have crews out all over the place chasing tornadoes. I was one of those folks doing tornadoes. We were there at different times. But what would happen is if we were chasing at night, of course, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it's very flat in Oklahoma.
It is crazy.
It is crazy. But we would see those transformers blow up, and that blue light would illuminate the sky, and that is how oftentimes we would see the tornadoes. Now, our tornado risk is very low today, so no big concerns now for tornadoes. But I do want to just point out, I remember riding in Oklahoma City one night, chasing tornadoes, seeing those exploding transformers and seeing that wedge tornado off in the distance. So that oftentimes when the power is out in events like this, not talking about tornadoes now, but talking about those power flashes, that's how sometimes you're able to see.
That would illuminate the tornado for you?
It would.
It makes them extra scary, too.
Yeah, I'll never forget seeing a wedge tornado at night that you would never normally get to see unless you saw that flash. So the flash of the transformers would then illuminate the entire sky nearby, and then off in the distance, there we saw it, the tornado that we were seeing on radar. We knew where it was, but then we could actually see it in the sky. But anyway, the point here is that we will see more of those probably as these winds continue to stay sustained close to tropical storm force in a lot of areas, certainly tropical storm force gusts in a lot of areas. And you guys, Eric was just talking about seeing, you know, for 1 minute it may be weaker and then it may be stronger another round. It's all because of what Ginger just pointed out. We are talking about those bands moving in, and you can see the trend here where the deeper reds are on the screen. That's going to be the heavier rain. That's also going to be where some of those stronger wind gusts are, and we're going to see more of that, you know, sort of spinning around that center of circulation. If you're just tuned in with us wondering where where the center is. We're looking at the center likely over Osceola County, even southern sections of Orange County, right where you're seeing that spin sort of originate. And then around it is where we're seeing those stronger cells that really are producing heavy rain and wind. Not so much that chance for any lightning, not so much that chance for any tornadoes. Although we still can't rule it out. That risk for tornadoes is much lower. So let's show you future radar and take you into when we expect to see this finally pushing out. So it's going to take a while, the next several hours, and that's why we're going to see the chance for flooding to continue. A couple of inches, possibly 3 inches of rain coming down per hour over many of these spots. And so that's why the rain will add up and continue to add up from here. So as we take you into the time, there's 5 a.m. when we will get a new advisory, by the way, and we do expect to see this to weaken. Right now, technically still a hurricane on top of us. We do expect it to become a reclassified system as a tropical storm with lower winds. But technically, the winds around that center of circulation, or right in within that center, are at 75 miles per hour. But we've been checking around all of our winds instruments, and the winds are right now sustained close to 40 miles per hour, some gusts up to 50, 60 miles per hour. I'm going to show you that in just a little bit. But here is the rain that we are pinpointing into the future. 5 a.m., still seeing that center of circulation start to push, though, to the north, still in Osceola County likely, but moving into East Orange County and then northern sections of Brevard County as we spin the whole system up to the north and push it off to the north and east, moving at close to 10 miles per hour. So not moving fast enough for us. We'd like it to move out faster. There's 8:30 this morning. Again, seeing most of the heavy rain push into Volusia County and Flagler County, as well as northern Lake County, possibly near the Ocala National Forest and Marion County, far western, rather eastern sections of Marion County. So that's where the bulk of the heaviest rain will be by 8:30 this morning as we begin to see some drying, still light rain, but some drying of that heaviest rain moving out of Brevard, certainly central and southern Brevard, and even East Orange County beginning to see the heaviest rain push to the north of us, certainly by 11. But notice still that wraparound moisture, that wraparound rain still moving in to areas like Orange County. But we expect to see the bulk of it begin to push off to the north and to the east. There's one in the afternoon, beginning to see most of it out to sea, and we'll have to see if this picks up some speed. Julie and I were just talking moments ago about how long we would think this would stick around, and as we show you that future radar, sometimes this is, again, based on model data, sometimes it can pick up some speed and be faster than some of these models are showing. So Julie, we'll bring you in here. Julie Broughton, meteorologist that we've been spending time together talking about all this stuff. I mean, do you think that we're going to see this move out even before 1 this afternoon?
You know, I do think that it does seem to be moving fairly quickly. We'll have a better idea when that update comes out at 5. But the radar trends, although a lot of you still really in the thick of it, seeing that very heavy rain as well as those strong winds, it looks like things will rapidly improve through the mid-morning hours. Now, we saw that video from Eric Sandoval, his live shot. He was in Daytona Beach, and he was saying sustained winds at that time were around 30 to 35 miles per hour, and you saw just how strong those winds looked. So even when we talk about relatively weak tropical storm force winds, we're still talking about damaging winds. Now, here's a look at some of the highest wind gusts we've seen reported so far during this event. Leesburg, 51 mile per hour wind gusts. Daytona Beach, wind gusts up to 47 miles per hour at times. Sanford, you have seen winds as high as 48 miles per hour. And in Melbourne, look at that, 67 mile per hour wind gusts. In Orlando International Airport, 56 mile per hour wind gusts. So we have all been dealing with, at the very least, strong tropical storm force winds at times. And flooding, a concern for us now. A new flash flood warning was just issued for Orange and Osceola County until 6:15 as rain continues to fall over those same areas. So these totals will continue to be updated, but as of around midnight already, Kennedy Space Center had picked up almost 9 inches of rain. Indian Harbor Beach, about 4.5 inches of rain. Melbourne, almost 4. Cape Canaveral, almost 5. Sanford, more than 3. And MCO, almost 3 inches of rain. And again, those totals are really piling up because we've seen those rain bands wrapping around over the same areas, especially to the north and east of that center of circulation. Troy's been showing you the current radar, who is getting the heaviest rain right now. Here's a look at the future radar. So right now it is 3:25. As we head through the next 6 or 7 hours, again, we'll start to see some of that heaviest rain moving out over the Atlantic as the center of circulation lifts off to the north and east. Still, though, at 10 o'clock this morning, areas like Daytona Beach, even back down into western Orange County, you could still see some pockets of that heavy rain, and we'll continue to see more rain rolling through Thursday at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Again, we're talking about a lot of this moving off the coast. We do hear the alarms beeping. Troy's going back there to see what that is. I think that's probably likely another flash flood advisory. He'll let us know here in just a minute. It is a flash flood reissue, Troy says. And so by Friday this afternoon, I think a lot of the clouds will, tomorrow afternoon, right? Today's Thursday, technically. Yes, today's. So technically, tomorrow is Friday. So by Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we will clear everything out. But by today, around the middle of the afternoon, I think things will look a whole lot better for us. Here's a look at our current winds. Again, these are sustained winds. Cape Canaveral, you are still seeing sustained winds at 39 miles per hour. Look at that, Daytona Beach. That's where Eric Sandoval was a little while ago and really looking rough in his live shot. 46 mile per hour winds, 28 mile per hour winds. If you're in Palm Coast, looking a little bit better in Marion County, Ocala and the Villages, both reporting sustained winds at 12 miles per hour. Leesburg, 31 mile per hour winds right now. So again, that center of circulation, you see those arrows, that counterclockwise center of circulation around Ian, bringing in all of that moisture for us. Here's a look at the live radar. Again, Troy has been showing us this as well. And you see all those areas of green. That indicates where we do have those flood advisories in place. And you'll see as we loop back over the last hour, the areas of yellow, red, and orange indicating throughout much of northern Brevard County, just about all of Seminole County really seeing that heavy rain coming down right now, as well as down into western Orange County, back into southern Lake County, as well as near the attractions. So here's a look at the latest information on Ian. Our last advisory was at 2 o'clock. The next advisory comes out at 5. That's when we'll also have a better idea exactly on the forward motion of the system. But as of 2 o'clock, still talking about a Category 1 hurricane with winds at 75 miles per hour. Those wind gusts up to 115 miles per hour and movement to the northeast at 9 miles per hour. Again, Ian made landfall yesterday around 3:05 as a strong Category 4 storm with winds at 150 miles per hour. So one of the strongest storms to make landfall. And again, we're talking about across our area, all of us have seen tropical storm force winds. We haven't found many reports of hurricane force winds gusts just yet. I'm sure we probably will as reports continue to come in. And Troy is back with us now. And Troy, really the same area is just getting hit with very heavy rain. That's why flooding is such a concern for us right now.
Yeah, as you just showed on the radar, we're seeing those spiraling bands that will continue to come in, and it's going to be a while before we actually get to push this whole system out. We do, as Julie said, expect a new advisory at 5 a.m., and that will have a new track. But here's the bottom line. We see the thing. We see where it's centered over Osceola County. We do think this icon should be a little bit farther to the north. This is issued from the National Hurricane Center, but a little bit farther to the north of where this icon is showing is where we're actually seeing that center of circulation. So it is over part of southern sections of Orange County. And I think with that update at 5 o'clock, we'll begin to see more of that shift, more of this sort of in line with what we're seeing as well. But again, it'll take a few more hours before we can push the entire system out. But as early as the lunch hour, a lot of Central Florida, I think, will begin to see less and less of those stronger winds, less and less of the heavier rain. So there's the radar again as we show it to you. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you see where some of that heaviest rain is coming down across Central Florida. And again, you know, a lot of times when I'm out and about, I talk to people and they still ask often, what does the green mean? What does the red mean? What does the yellow mean? Well, let's go ahead and explain it while we have some time here. The green means light rain. Anytime you see that, that's going to be very light rain coming down, and there will be pockets where you have some yellow mixing in with the green where it's a little bit heavier. That's going to be here on our western sides. We're talking about Marion County seeing mostly light rain, the Ocala National Forest seeing a little bit of that light to moderate mix where you're seeing the yellows, and then back on down into Sumter County and Lake County, mostly light to a little bit of moderate rain in yellow. But the heaviest of the rain continues to be over the same spot spots, and that's going to be closer to the center of that circulation. So again, center of circulation close to Osceola, northern Osceola, and southern sections of Orange County. So just north of that, spiraling around that center, pulling moisture in and up and around, we continue to see some of that heaviest rain. So as we take you into it, you see that heavy rain in red there for Titusville on down to Port St. John, and then back over to Altamont Springs, downtown Orlando, and then back over to Dr. Phillips and Kissimmee. Those are all areas with rain rates possibly up to 3 inches an hour. And so as this rain continues to come down over these same spots, they're going to lead to flooding. That's what these green polygons are. Those are the flood advisories in effect. So for Sanford to Deltona on down to Altamont Springs, Winter Park, downtown Orlando, Oak Ridge, and down to Kissimmee is where we continue to have some of that heaviest rain, and also embedded in some of those bands where you see the reds, the heaviest rain, we also have the strongest winds. So guys, we are going to be pinpointing the wind. The wind will be fairly strong on into the next several hours. We're talking about those sustained winds greater than 40 miles per hour in many spots, but gusting close to 60 miles per hour or greater. Again, a new advisory at 5 o'clock will continue to update you on the rain and the wind and all those changes.
We know you will. Troy Bridges, thank you so much.
All right, we want to check in now with another Troy. Troy Campbell is in Seminole County. We saw last time that you were in a neighborhood that, you know, had some heavy rain happening right there. So where are you now?
So now we're at Lake Monroe. We're right here at the marina. We want to show you this restaurant here at the marina. Maybe you've been here before and you've seen it. So this is St. John's Seafood and Shrimp. It appears that at least an awning, some form of an awning is, you can clearly see it has completely been mangled up here. Pieces of that structure are spun into the road, are blown right in here into the entranceway. It doesn't appear that this was actually a part of the structure, though, of the building. And looking on Google Images, even in a recent year, this wasn't here. So it appears just to be some sort of an awning, maybe for when people are out here on a wait. You can see that they also have placed over here, you know, some of their equipment from inside, or that would have been outside, actually, because they have this Lake Monroe. So they have a nice outdoor seating area that obviously they need to get that stuff off of for a hurricane. So again, right here, this equipment, I mean, this heavy stuff that is just blown completely over here. We haven't seen like anyone who maybe works or has access to this building come here. We saw a Sanford police officer, but we haven't seen anyone else coming up here. It does appear they have electricity, and it is dark, but it does appear some sort of, if they have a tarp up there that is just whipping over the roof. It's dark. I'm assuming that that is a black tarp and not actually a part of their roof. And actually looking right here, you can see the water right here. So Lake Monroe, that's not rain. That's full on water of Lake Monroe just flying up. Right, hat. I'm on my hat, so I am going to take a moment to get that because next things can get crazy. So right behind me with the wind, let's walk with it. Take a look at that. So that's Lake Monroe right here where this restaurant, the front awning out, water billowing up, electricity on, and then, yeah, take a look at this, which would normally be all that patio furniture that you had just seen. that would have got completely just blown away now. So water, Lake Monroe coming right up here. If we put the camera right on it, you won't see anything anyway. So we can take a little step back here. We also are picking the areas we stand very selectively, and right now we have the whole building right here on the corner. So safety first. As the water is just, water in Lake Monroe, yeah, it's completely coming up over the top here. And this structure, the debris of this structure continues to billow through the property here. And it does appear they still do have electricity. Once somebody from this business arrives here, when it is safe to do so, and or first responders or fire department, just because some of this debris, we can ask some questions to get a better idea of what exactly, this structure here and what time they think this came down. And obviously plans, and we'll It's kind of like being upstream of something, so have the wind on our backs, so in case any of this moves, that's not going to head towards us. So looking at that, you would want to do something so it doesn't continue to ravish here. The trees, so the marina, we have tons of boats, right? There's a trailer here. It was wobbling just a little bit ago. You can also clearly see we've seen the palm fronds, the ones that were already, dying, dead, ready to go. They didn't stand a chance. And I know in our other Troy was just talking about transformers. So when we were by the Little Wekiva River, and we headed over here, on the way here, there was a time when we were on I-4, the entire sky above us turned blue. We probably saw like another 6 transformer explosions. I don't recall ever witnessing so many, hearing them, and you see them in the distance. You can be in a safe spot and plenty far when one of those that happens. But several occasions here in Seminole County through the evening, we have seen the sky above us turn blue, and you hear like a zap, almost like, sometimes you have those mosquito, the mosquito detector killers on your patio, and you hear like that zap. So just amplifying that is very similar to the sound you see, and you see green and blue. Lighting the sky, which is different and obviously very dangerous as power continues to go out in certain areas, but you can see power can be on as the storm continues to go. So that is not an indicator if things are bad, because clearly, this place is getting hit pretty hard. I know Hurricane Matthew, Lake Monroe, 2015, yeah. We were out here, I was out here, and we watched a boat just smash right up to the side here and sink. So we will continue to look, and we'll actually head over here a little bit later to see for the water level on this side, what these boats, a lot of these people live in these boats over here. So this is nothing new to the people who have these boats here at the marina. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is Lake Monroe near downtown Sanford. We are standing in front of the St. John's, it's a restaurant called St. John's Steak and Seafood. When we arrived up here, you see an awning, a part of the structure blown over. Those pieces are continuing just to rattle in this wind. So definitely you want to stay away from it. We're staying away from it. Some of the signs as well. If you look at these little signs over here, just completely swaying, very dangerous. Again, so if you ever, well, you shouldn't be out, but just reiterating to you guys, we are in a position, so if they did blow, they are going to blow completely opposite of where we are, and they are just going to fly that way. So safety first, a lot going on right here. We're going to look at some water levels, and we did show also the level of Lake Monroe. The water right now currently, if you've ever eaten here at this restaurant and sat outside on the patio facing the lake, that is all now has Lake Monroe water just bashing up to the complete back of the building here. So I'll send it back to you guys as we continue to check this all out.
My goodness, what a lot happening in that area, Troy. And I do hope you guys are being safe, because you just never know. Things can be unpredictable and just kind of fly up. But that's a great illustration of what is really happening out in different neighborhoods.
With past hurricanes like Irma and things, you can see some crazy scenes out there on Lake Monroe. It gets pretty wild, very choppy on the lake, but that was excessive even for Lake Monroe hurricane coverage.
Yeah, he had to point out that it wasn't actually raining on him for most of it, that it was just water splashing from the lake. Yeah.
Actual lake. We'll join him again in a bit. But let's go to Lauren Cervantes. She is live for us in Brevard County. Looks like a much calmer situation where she is right now.
Good morning, Matt and Ginger. It's a little deceiving. It comes and goes, ebbs and flows. I know Julie was mentioning the wind gusts at about 39 miles an hour. We have felt that. Right now it is calmer, as you mentioned. It's not too bad out here. It has definitely ramped up, though, from when we were last out last night. I'm going to have my photographer show you, just to give you an idea, the palm fronds, the winds. You will get bigger gusts, but right now, not too terrible for what we are expecting, because we know that we will see the strongest winds here. We're expecting them, in that 4 a.m., 5 a.m. hour. What I will say right now, you can't really separate the wind from the rain, because it is just blowing almost like sheets of water to try and describe it. But see here, we're getting a bigger gust right now. It just kind of ebbs and flows. We're in an area off of A1A. We're at a hotel. We're kind of protected because, again, we're expecting to get the worst of it in the next couple of hours here in our area. I'll let Troy and Julie let you know exactly when that might be for our area here. But it's definitely worse than earlier. I know Sheriff Ivey gave his last update about 12, 13 hours ago now, and he said the biggest concern for them was going to be consistent rain, especially because a lot of the lakes and ponds were already at their threshold. I can tell you, boy, I'm going to back this way just a little bit so that I'm not getting wind whipped here, but yeah, he said the biggest concern is the consistency of the rain, and that's what we've seen. We've been up and out since about 1 a.m. this morning. See, it's really picking up now. I don't know if you can see the difference with the palm trees and the rain. So we do get periods of flow like this, but we're still expecting it to get maybe a little worse here later this morning before it gets better. But yeah, not too crazy. We have the truck here as protection. So we're doing all right over here in Brevard County. Again, we're at a hotel off of A1A near West Central Boulevard for those in the area, not far from Manatee Sanctuary Park, which yesterday when I was there was already flooding. It was rising almost not at the boardwalk, but at the steps to get up to the boardwalk. So for now, in Brevard County, I'm Lauren Cervantes, getting Results News 6. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Lauren, thank you. You know, she talked about A1A, and, you know, several years ago when we had I think it may have been Matthew.
Yeah.
A1A really took a beating.
It was underwater.
Yeah, it really was. So
Yeah.
it's good to hear that things are a little bit better this time
Hopefully
around.
it is holding up. Let's get you over to meteorologist Troy Bridges for a look at how this thing is shaping up. There's definitely some winds out there. Sanford seemed to be a real problem area.
Yeah, you can see those winds sustained right now near tropical storm force. It takes 40-mile-per-hour winds to be a tropical storm, and we have tropical storm force winds up right now. It's close to that at 38 miles per hour. Again, these are sustained winds, so these are winds that continue to be steady at that speed at 38 miles per hour. For Sanford, we're seeing, again, different variations of winds because of those spiraling bands. So there will be times where we don't have heavy rain and we do have some stronger wind gusts, and then there are times when we may not have very strong wind, but some of that rain is right on our doorstep, and that's going to be the trend while this continues to spiral around over the next several hours. We do think by early afternoon, most of the bulk of this rain will be beginning to push out of most of Central Florida, which will be some good news. But right now, these are sustained winds, and then I'm going to show you those gusts. Sustained constant winds in Cocoa Beach right now at 45 miles per hour. So those are winds up to tropical storm force in Cocoa Beach. Close to that at 39 mile per hour sustained winds at Cape Canaveral. I know they wanted to get that rocket into the VAB. Glad that they did in time, because certainly tropical storm force winds not a good thing, not a good situation anywhere, certainly not for the rocket. 30 mile per hour winds right now at Melbourne. We see that 18 mile per hour winds in Orlando, 18 mile per hour sustained winds right now in Ocala. Daytona Beach, again, look at those winds up to 45 miles per hour. So many of our coastal zones seeing those sustained winds close to tropical storm force. These are the gusts, even greater than that. Again, to be a hurricane gusts would be 75 miles per hour or greater. We're not really seeing much of that, thank goodness. And so even though technically as of the last advisory, we have Ian as a hurricane, I do think it's going to be downgraded to certainly a tropical storm as we get that 5 a.m. advisory, and the track likely to start to agree more with what we're seeing. We're seeing that center of circulation likely right on top of northern Osceola County and then southern and eastern Orange County. And as that continues to shift off to the north, move off to the north and east at about 9 to 10 miles per hour, it's going to still impact us for the next several hours, likely through the noon hour and even through the early afternoon. But these are the gusts we're talking about. Sanford seeing those wind gusts up to 53 miles per hour. Right there at Daytona Beach, wind gusts up to 67, almost 70 miles per hour. So approaching some hurricane force gusts in Daytona Beach. Also seeing 43 mile per hour gusts in Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, 52 mile per hour gust, 40 mile per hour gust in Leesburg. So many areas right now, look at Palm Coast, Flagler County, 44 mile per hour gusts. So many areas seeing some tropical storm force gusts, even some sustained winds at tropical storm force, and then approaching some gusts possibly closer to hurricane force, but not a lot of that, even though this is our wind profile predicting the next several hours. As we take you into the afternoon hours today, again, you see that shift of the strongest wind off to the north. Now, where you're seeing the yellow, those are going to be tropical storm force gusts, and then within this orange, that would be where we could see a couple of gusts trying to approach some hurricane force, but definitely some tropical storm force gusts within that orange shading. So by 11 this morning, still seeing those tropical storm force winds for a good bit of Volusia County, Seminole County, even eastern Orange County, and northern sections of Brevard County, stretching all the way up into Flagler County, northern Lake County, and then those gusts at tropical storm force or just below where you're seeing the yellow, which is still a large part of central Florida. So the wind is going to stick around for a while, and then we take you through the early morning hours tomorrow. Still some wraparound winds that could stick around, but we do expect most of those stronger winds by the early afternoon to begin to push out and away from central Florida. So here is the latest advisory again as of 2 o'clock this morning. Technically, winds showing up as 75 miles per hour. I think they will downgrade that to a tropical storm with lower winds as we get closer to the 5 a.m. advisory. And with that advisory, I think they're going to move this icon a little bit farther to the north as well, because we do think the center of circulation again is over northern Osceola County and southern sections of Orange County. Zoomed in on the track here. The track, of course, likely to push farther off to the east and to the northeast. So here is the rain that we are pinpointing. A good bit of heavy rain where you're seeing the reds for a large part of central zones. Now some of those heavier bands shifting north closer to areas in Volusia County like Deltona and north of Titusville. But again, Titusville, you just had some of the heavier downpours push through. So all of this, that heavier banding of rain. I'm going to take you into the future, and then Julie's going to show you the rain that's coming down right now, I do believe coming up in a little bit. But look at this. This is on into 6:30 this morning. We're going to see more of that center of circulation pushing off to the north and to the east, moving into northern Brevard, also for a good bit of sections of Volusia County and even eastern Orange County. We'll see this center of circulation sort of weaken a bit and not look so defined. It still doesn't look all that defined now that it's certainly moved over land. But as it moves to the north and northeast, we'll see wraparound rain. But there's 11 o'clock this morning, still seeing some heavier downpours wrapping around into western sides of Orange County. Then by 1 this afternoon, we push the bulk of the rain up and out, still dealing with it, though, possibly in parts of Volusia County, even Flagler County, and then the afternoon hours by 3 p.m., most all of us drying out. So again, we still have several hours to go with some of this heavy rain. Let's bring in meteorologist Julie Broughton now. And Julie, you can show us more about that rain coming down. Still relentless, still leading to flooding. That's what those polygons are all about.
Yeah, so all of those polygons represent flash flood advisories in place, most of them through the 6 o'clock hour, and will likely be extended. We are hearing that downtown Kissimmee in the area of Main Street and 192 is seeing a lot of flooding out there, and really easy to see why here. You see all those rain bands wrapping around just the same areas over and over again as that center of circulation with Ian continues to lift off to the north and east. Now here's a little bit wider look out, and you can see again all that heavy rain out over the Atlantic, the center of circulation, and that counterclockwise motion wrapping all that rain around into areas like northern Brevard County, Volusia County, really seeing a lot of heavy rain right now, going back into much of Seminole County, Orange County, and again, the rain at the moment letting up in areas like Osceola County, but as we loop, you can see all that heavy rain has moved through, and still in the Kissimmee area, seeing some moderate rainfall. And so when you're looking at the colors of the radar, that shows us, again, rainfall reflectivity rate. So when we're talking about those yellows and oranges and red, we are seeing the heavy rain on top of areas where it has already just rained so much. Now, again, so we're talking about still almost tropical storm force winds, just about area-wide force. The strongest wind gusts we've had reported so far in Leesburg, 51 miles per hour. Daytona Beach, 47 mile per hour wind gusts. Our Eric Sandoval is out in Daytona Beach, and we saw just how strong those winds were in his live shot about a half hour ago. Sanford, 48 mile per hour wind gusts. Melbourne, you have seen very windy conditions, checking in with 67 mile per hour wind gusts, and Orlando International Airport winds have been gusting into the mid 50s. Now we still have several hours to go of this heavy rain rain as well as gusty winds. Here's how it looks for you on the future radar. So there's the clock at the top of the screen at 10 o'clock in the morning. And notice, again, we'll still see those areas of heavy rain across areas like Volusia County, back into Marion County even, and down toward Orlando. So by around mid-afternoon, I think is when things really start to improve for us. But again, especially in the areas with those flash flood advisories, the ground already saturated from all that rain that has already come down with the system, and more of those rain bands just working over the same area. Now by 3 o'clock, still talking about the potential of some rain along the coast, but all of that moves out to the north and east. And then as we move through the day tomorrow, so that's Friday when we're talking about tomorrow, we will clear things out pretty quickly. Here's a look at our current wind speeds. Again, these are sustained winds, so winds constantly blowing at the speed right now. The strongest winds along the coast, Daytona Beach, 45-mile-per-hour sustained winds, so you are definitely seeing some higher gusts in that area. If you're in Cape Canaveral, your sustained winds are at 39 miles per hour, 45 in Cocoa Beach, Melbourne 31. Still pretty gusty even back as far west as Leesburg with 26-mile-per-hour sustained winds. If you're up in Marion County right now with this, winds in Ocala are 18 miles per hour, 17 miles per hour in Kissimmee, and 28-mile-per-hour winds right now in Orlando. Again, our most recent advisory came out at 2 o'clock. We will get another advisory coming out at 5 o'clock. So here's how this looks for us. As of 2 o'clock, winds were at 75 miles per hour, sustained. That center of circulation, again, we think that we'll see that moved off to the north when that new 5 o'clock update comes out. So it looks like the center right in this area over northern Osceola County, southern Orange County, southeastern Orange County, moving off to the north and east at 9 miles per hour, and this will likely be downgraded to a tropical storm at 5 o'clock. But regardless of whether it's downgraded to a tropical storm, we are still talking about another several hours of strong winds, sustained tropical storm force winds across much of central Florida for us right now. And again, that heavy rain continuing to come down for us as we move through the rest of the day. Again, that future radar showing still at 3 o'clock as we go in a little bit closer. We can see those areas definitely still seeing some pockets of heavy rain that are seeing it right now. Again, on that radar, these green areas showing where you have flash flood advisories in place for the next couple of hours with that very heavy rain through Daytona Beach south. And again, we are getting reports of very heavy flooding in the Kissimmee area around US 192 and Main Street. And Troy is back with us now. And Troy, this rain just really is relentless out there for so many folks right now.
Definitely is. As we've been talking about that heavy rain, we're seeing it behind you right there. Of course, we have that advisory that Julie was just talking about, the one at 2 a.m. showing winds at 75 miles per hour. Again, we'll have that new 5 a.m. advisory that we do expect to see an update with that, and we could see a downgrade to a tropical storm after that. So we'll be pinpointing that very carefully with a new cone. The good news is that we do expect to see this thing weaken and move on out. I'm going to show you some more of the rain, the zoomed in view of some of the heavier downpours that we're pinpointing across central Florida. And you can see, again, these are wrapping around that center of circulation. Julie was just talking about the center over northern Osceola County and sections of southern and eastern Orange County. And so as that happens, you see all these bands spiraling around that center of circulation. And that's where the heavier rain is. That's where the stronger wind gusts are. And again, we're seeing those wind gusts at tropical storm force or higher in many areas, or well into the tropical storm force category here. So as we talk about the heavier rain, there's Deltona to Sanford, areas that weren't seeing as much heavy rain over the past few minutes. Now that heavy stuff beginning to push in as we're seeing these spiraling bands. So we're zooming in to Deltona to Sanford, down to Altamont Springs and Winter Park, where you're seeing the deeper reds. That's going to be the heaviest rain that continues to push in. Also there for Oak Ridge, down to Kissimmee. And as Julie said, there is some significant flooding in Kissimmee, and we will likely see more of that in other spots because we see this rain moving over some of the same areas as these spiraling bands continue to spin around that center of circulation. We call it training, much like a train on a train track. As these same areas of heavy rain move over these same spots, we will see that chance for some flooding. Port St. John, as well as Merritt Island and Titusville up to Mims, seeing more of that heavy rain. Merritt Island right now, you have that green on top of you. That's a little bit more in the way of the light tomorrow. moderate rain. But to the north of you is the heavier stuff on top of Mims. And then just to the north of Mims, where you're seeing that red, that spiraling band continuing to push through, and more of those continue to feed in around that center of circulation. We're seeing more in the way of light rain for Ocala, Marion County, a good bit of Marion County seeing light, a few pockets of moderate rain, and the Ocala National Forest stretching on down to Lake and Sumter counties. Most of it is light rain. This is a good indicator of what we've been talking about, that dirty side of the storm, that right front quadrant as it continues to move to the north-northeast. This whole side here would be that right front quadrant here, and that's where we're seeing the most squally weather. And what we mean by that is those squall lines, those heavier lines of heavy storms with the heavier rain and the stronger winds. But then on that left side, we're seeing it weaker. We're seeing just, mainly light rain. But again, wrapping around this whole system, we'll see a chance for some of those stronger wind gusts to move into some of our western zones as well. So again, the heaviest rain stretching from Daytona Beach on down into areas off into Brevard County as we talk about that heavy downpour. There it is for Daytona Beach to Port Orange to New Smyrna Beach, and then back up to Ormond Beach and Flagler Beach. Again, these pockets here of yellow indicating the moderate rain, but where you're seeing the reds, we could see up to 3 inches or more of rain an hour coming down. And because it's coming over the same spots over and over, that is going to lead to significant flooding. And embedded in some of these pockets where we have the heavy rain, where you're seeing the reds, we've got those winds up greater than 40 miles per hour, some near 50 miles per hour, and that in some spots is sustained wind. And so that's going to lead to some certainly some damage with trees, tree limbs down. We've already seen with our reporters out and about that wind damage, and we will likely, when the sun comes up, see more of that. So for New Smyrna Beach on down south and then north of New Smyrna Beach to Port Orange, some of the heaviest rain. And then here we go in southern sections of Brevard County, the rain not quite as heavy. You see some light rain because we're seeing that center of circulation mainly north of this zone. So really into Osceola and southern sections of Orange County is where that center of circulation is. So wrapping around it, we've got light rain in some of our southern zones like Melbourne, Palm Bay, and Grant Valcaria. I do think we're not going to see much in the way of those heavier downpours or as many of those stronger wind gusts, although there will be some wind gusts to tropical storm force even in Brevard County from Satellite Beach down to Melbourne, Palm Bay, Malabar down to Grant Valcaria and Mico. But again, the heaviest of the rain well to the north of that region. Northern sections of Brevard County seeing a chance for some of that heavier rain as well. There's Port St. John and there's Merritt Island, and then north of there into Mims and Titusville. Again, where you're seeing these deeper reds, that's where some of that heavier rain is coming down and embedded some of those stronger wind gusts. But look at this, covered up with red here on the screen as we take it to Oviedo, Winter Springs, Lake Mary, Sanford, on up to Deltona and Orange City. All of these areas, back to Oviedo, down to Altamont Springs, seeing that very heavy rain down to Winter Park. And so this is where we could see some flooding as we're still waiting for that center of circulation to push to the north. As it slowly pushes to the northeast, a lot of these regions are going to be dealing with the same heavy downpours for a couple of hours. And that's why we do expect flooding to be a really big concern. The wind, the other concern, is we've been talking about those winds sustained at tropical storm force. We will be pinpointing that likely to stick around for the next several hours. So let's go back to you, Julie Broughton, with some more information.
We are looking at the potential of flooding in a lot of spots. Again, we're starting out on the radar for you where you were zoomed in, and all these areas of green, that shows us where we have those flash flood advisories in place. And we're zoomed in down in Kissimmee. We are hearing about quite a bit of flooding in the US 192 Main Street area, downtown Kissimmee. So again, we'll continue to see those areas of very heavy rain wrapping around. So Orlando, Oak Ridge, down through Kissimmee, right in the Four Corners region, where you see those areas of yellow, red, and orange. That's where we're seeing 2 to 3, even 4 inches of rain falling per hour in some spots as all of that continues to come down. And we're still dealing with tropical storm force winds across a lot of central Florida. So really the next several hours still looking pretty dicey for a lot of us. Leesburg, you've seen winds gusting into the low 50s at 51 miles per hour. If you're in Daytona Beach, you've seen wind gusts as high as 47 miles per hour. Sanford, 48 mile per hour wind gusts. Melbourne, look at that, 67 mile per hour wind gusts reported. And in Orlando, winds are gusting up to 56 miles per hour. Here's a look at the future radar for you. Again, we are talking about dicey next several hours. Very heavy rain still lingering into the middle part of the morning. There is the clock for you at the top of your screen. So this is based on model data, and we'll continue to see new runs of this as we move through the next couple of hours. But notice, even at 10 o'clock, still from Jacksonville down through Daytona Beach and even into Orlando, down into southern Lake County, as well as down into northwestern Osceola County, still seeing some of those pockets of heavier rain. Again, that is why we have those flash flood advisories in place. All of this continues to lift to the north and east. Again, we will get a better idea coming up when the 5 o'clock advisory comes out, just how fast that center of circulation is moving. But we do think by 3 o'clock this afternoon, it will be out over the Atlantic. And as that happens, you know, we always talk about the, quote, dirty side of the storm. That is that front right quadrant relative to how the storm is moving. So as that center of circulation does move off our coast, then the roughest weather will be out over the Atlantic. We have seen our threat of tornadoes drop throughout the overnight hours. The threat isn't completely gone. Anytime we're dealing with a landfalling tropical system or a tropical system, we do have that threat of isolated tornadoes, but that threat has really dropped, and our primary concern has transitioned to those areas of flooding and that heavy rain that so many of you, unfortunately, are dealing with. So by 5 o'clock tomorrow, again, we will be looking good for our Friday. But again, the big story right now, those areas of heavy rain as well as the winds. This is a look at our sustained winds. So this is what you're dealing with right now. Some of the heaviest winds right along the coast still. If you were in Daytona Beach, your winds are at 44 miles per hour. We've seen our Eric Sandoval out there reporting, just really looking windy and wet out there outside of his hotel. 33 mile per hour winds in Cape Canaveral. If you're in Cocoa Beach right now, your sustained winds are at 44 miles per hour. Kissimmee, 18 mile per hour winds right now. And again, we are dealing with flooding and flash flood advisories in place for much of central Florida, including Orange and Osceola County. Leesburg, your winds are at 29 miles per hour and 28 miles per hour for those of you up in Flagler County. Here's a look at that 2 o'clock advisory. Again, we'll get a new advisory coming out at 5 o'clock. But again, Troy and I have been talking about this. The advisories, you know, at this point, it is what it is, where we are dealing with those rain bands, that very heavy rain, those strong winds. That will be the case for us for the next, you know, several hours. 75 mile per hour winds as of 2 o'clock. We will likely see those winds downgraded to a tropical storm at the 5 o'clock advisory. But again, Troy, we are all dealing with tropical storm force winds across central Florida. Very heavy rain as this continues to move out. And we'll be dealing with rain, Troy, for the next several hours.
Oh, yeah, that rain is going to continue to add up. And of course, those winds are not going to die down anytime soon. As we show you those winds again, we're seeing sustained winds at tropical storm force for much of central Florida. So here they are. We're seeing winds sustained in Cocoa Beach at 44 miles per hour, 36 mile per hour sustained winds in Sanford. Look at Daytona Beach, sustained winds at 44 miles per hour. Now keep in mind, to be tropical storm force, it's 40 miles per hour or greater. So we've got a lot of that. Again, sustained means these winds are constant. We're not seeing just gusts of them. We're seeing higher gusts than this, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But we are seeing those sustained winds at close to 30 miles per hour or even higher. So 44 mile per hour winds sustained right now are tropical storm force for Daytona Beach. 44 mile per hour tropical storm force sustained winds right now in Cocoa Beach, and getting closer to that in pockets. Now again, keep in mind, as this stuff comes in spiraling bands, some of those pockets of heavier rain will have some of those stronger wind gusts and even some sustained winds at tropical storm force. So in areas where we're not necessarily dealing with sustained winds or even gusts at tropical storm force, we could see that move in, out, and back in again. So that'll be the story with these bands spiraling around. These are the gusts right now at 56 miles per hour in Sanford. Right now, 49 mile per hour winds gusting at Cape Canaveral, 54 mile per hour gusts right now at Cocoa Beach, well into the tropical storm category. 43 mile per hour sustained gust in Melbourne and Daytona Beach, up to 58 miles per hour. So many areas, there's Leesburg right at 40 mile per hour wind gusts. So we will see more of this. We show you this wind radii where you're seeing the orange shading. That's going to be the chance for a couple of gusts that could get closer to hurricane force. I do think we'll see this change again with the 5 o'clock advisory. We're going to see less of that and more of those tropical storm force wind gusts. And again, a large part of central Florida for the next several hours dealing with tropical storm force sustained winds. But then again, some gusts adjust after that. Once we see some of the wind dying down, we'll still be dealing with some of those gusts. So again, the 5 a.m. advisory will come out with a cone, but it really doesn't matter at this point because we know where it's headed. We know what it's doing. Right now, we are seeing that future radar with that center of circulation showing it right over northern sections of Osceola County, southern and eastern Orange County. On into the next several hours, though, we're going to push that center of circulation off to the north and to the northeast. And so you'll see more of the heavy rain in our northern zones rather than what we're seeing right now. Right now, the heaviest of the rain, the strongest of the wind is in central zones. That's Orange County, Seminole County, southern Volusia County, northern Brevard County right now, and the heavier rain also in Osceola County. So as we push the bulk of the system off to the north and to the northeast into the next several hours, we'll get the heavier rain in our northern zones, and we'll get a break in some of our central and southern zones. So on into 8:30 this morning, rain in Volusia County, and then beginning by 1 p.m. to see the bulk of it, you guys, push out. So let's now bring in Justin and Bridget as we talk more about this finally pushing out by the afternoon today. As early as 1 o'clock, we're going to be looking a lot better.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Good morning, Troy.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good to see you guys.
Up and at 'em.
Yep.
Ready for a day.
Absolutely.
Yes, we are. Well, let's take a look at a few more things that are going on. A lot of what we've been seeing is down trees out there, and we understand that we have some footage of Treasure.
Yeah,
is that what we have right now?
Let's get out to News 6's Treasure Roberts. She has the latest.
Yeah, it is really ramping up here. We are in downtown Orlando, right off of Orange Avenue and Livingston. Pay attention to this right behind me. Look at this. This should just show you how powerful the winds are right now in downtown Orlando, in Orange County. This is the Livingston street pole. You can see it's crashed to the ground. The street sign, Livingston, is literally touching the middle of the road. The street lights are leaning. I actually just saw a car drive past here. This is dangerous, I guess, for you to drive it. If a car was driving here and that fell, it could have crashed on top of the car. So that should just show you how bad it's getting. We did speak with the Orange County's emergency manager, who did tell us that around this time, wind and rain was going to be ramping up, and she was right. I can feel the difference here than I felt just an hour or so ago when I was out talking to her. And just to give you another, I guess, demonstration of how powerful the wind is, or just a representation of that, look at this sign right here, this street sign. Look at how much it's leaning. It's leaning over. The wind is really pushing it. In downtown, it is empty right now, as it should be. It's eerie here. Nobody, and the wind is really strong here. I'm also trying to brace myself. I'm gonna step behind here so I don't fall over this curb. But yeah, take a look at this, guys. Super dangerous right here. We're gonna get back into the car right now because I don't believe anybody should be standing out here at this point. We're gonna send it back to you.
A case in point of why you don't want to be out, you know, riding around, taking a look at anything unless it's a severe emergency.
Intense, and yes, there are breaks in the action here. You got to keep that in mind. When these bands are whipping through, there are going to be breaks. It'll fool you, yeah.
I mean, that was a whole light pole from downtown, just
crazy
on the ground. So that would have been devastating if someone had been out on the road. Well, News 6's Eric Von Anken and photojournalist Jeff Seegers are in Bradenton, and they were there when Ian blew through as a powerful Category 4 storm.
After having to endure those high winds, that whipping rain all day, they were looking forward to getting back to that hotel, getting some shut-eye, but they encountered a problem when they got there.
All right, so there is no power in the hotel. The hotel does have a backup generator, but for some reason that backup generator is not kicking on. So, until then, have to climb the stairs. Now you're probably saying to yourself, what floor was Eric and Jeff on? The answer is it's not 2. Is it 3? No. It's 7. So hold on, I'm going to pause it until I get there. So almost ready to go sleep in the stairwell. Hope you guys are okay.
I'm glad they're safe, but that is
The last thing that they want to do.
after an exhausting day of coverage.
That was
but
eerie.
I'm glad they're safe.
Yeah, Bradenton was, I mean, that was right there. Now, listen, it was a little south as far as the eye wall is concerned, but they were still getting, I mean, big time weather through Bradenton, obviously, if it knocks out power and the generator is not working either. But a lot of folks waking up this morning. So let's get over to meteorologist Troy Bridges. It is technically morning now that Bridget and I have taken over and Matt and Ginger are going to bed. So over the last few hours, we've seen this move through central Florida. Some tropical storm force winds sustained currently, right?
A lot of that. For a large part of central Florida, we are dealing with sustained winds at tropical storm force, some gusts up to 50, 60 miles per hour, not quite hurricane force. And that's why we do think with the 5 a.m. advisory, we're going to see this downgraded to a tropical storm. But if, you know, as of the last advisory, it technically within the center of circulation has winds at 75 miles per hour. We don't think that is the case anymore, as we are seeing our wind reading sites showing those winds sustained at tropical storm force, and then gusting a little stronger than 40 miles per hour, but not near hurricane force. So the center of circulation likely over northern Osceola County and central and eastern sections of Orange County, right in here, and then it spirals around that center with those heavier downpours. So where you're seeing the reds, we're talking about a couple of inches to possibly even 3 inches an hour. That doesn't sound all that impressive until you realize that this whole system is only moving at about 9 miles per hour to the northeast. And so as it continues to spiral around, many of these areas are going to be dealing with the same rain over and over and over. We keep saying the word training, like on a train track. These rain showers, these heavier downpours moving over the same areas, and that trend will continue. And that's why flooding is a concern. You see all these green polygons. Those are the flood advisories in effect for a large part of central Florida, especially in these areas where we see the rain over the same spot. So where are those areas? We're talking about Orange County, Seminole County, Osceola County. We have had reports of some significant flooding concerns in the Kissimmee area. Julie was talking about that earlier. There's Winter Springs to Altamont Springs to Winter Park. Again, this is coming in those bands, these waves of heavy rain. We had very heavy rain just to the south of this region. Watch the reds here over the past half hour or so. And as we take you through it, you see over the past hour, in fact, we had very heavy rain in Oak Ridge to downtown Orlando to Conway. Now we're seeing a lot of that shift a little bit to the north, but we'll see it wrap around again. So right now, the heaviest rain where you're seeing the reds and Winter Springs stretching all the way back down to Oak Ridge, although it's heavier to the north now of Altamont Springs, heading into Winter Springs, Lake Mary, and then Sanford. Sanford, you're about to see more of that heavier rain, 3 inches of rain an hour possible coming down just to your south, edging to the north, and then stretching all the way back. You can see all of that deep red color. That's going to be the heavy rain that continues to push through Oak Hill, stretching back to Mims and to Titusville. As we show you that, we've seen these waves of heavy rain from the south to the north in many of those areas on down to Port St. John. And Port St. John now getting a little break, still seeing some rain, but not the heaviest rain. And within these bands of deeper reds, we also have those stronger wind gusts as well at tropical storm force or greater. Taking you to farther south, southern Brevard County, we're still seeing some light rain for Mico to Grant Valcaria, also Malabar, Palm Bay, Melbourne, Satellite Beach. All these areas seeing some light rain and still some stronger wind gusts. We're seeing some strong winds sustained near 40 miles per hour as we head into the next few hours. We're going to see more of that heavy rain pushing in, and then we'll eventually push it out. I do want to show you the future radar, and as we take you into that in just a little bit, we'll show you that about 1 o'clock this afternoon, we expect to see some of the heaviest of the rain begin to push up and to push out. Again, expecting this to be downgraded as we head into the 5 a.m. advisory. advisory. There are the winds sustained near 40 miles per hour or greater, gusting at 50 to possibly 60 miles per hour in some spots. And we'll see more of that wind continuing to push up to the north and to the northeast and out of here by around 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon. Now, coming up, I'll show you future radar. Let's talk now with Julie Broughton. Julie, you've been showing those winds, the highest wind gusts that we've seen so far in many spots. And even now, we're seeing some wind gusts near 60, even 70 miles per hour.
Yeah, we are talking about tropical storm force winds across just about all of central Florida at this point. These are some of the highest wind gusts we've seen reported so far. So if you're in the Leesburg area, your winds have been gusting up to 51 miles per hour and some higher gusts elsewhere as well. So this is a look at the future radar for us. As we take a look at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll start to see some of the heavier activity moving out off the Atlantic as the center of circulation with Ian continues to move off to the north and east. The last update, it was moving around 9 miles per hour. So on that path still this afternoon, late this afternoon along our northeastern counties. So coastal areas of Flagler County, Volusia County, even northern Brevard County, you could still see some of that heavier rain wrapping around that center of circulation. But as Ian pulls away from us back out over the Atlantic, we clear things out quite quickly through the overnight hours and into the day tomorrow. And so our Friday looking pretty nice. Here's a look at our current wind speeds. Again, the threat of tornadoes has dropped for us significantly and will continue to drop as the center of circulation with Ian continues to move off to the north and east. However, there's always that low threat of tornadoes, but our biggest concern right now, those gusty winds, as well as localized flooding with the same areas seeing that heavy rain that Troy was just showing you. So all those areas on the radar with the areas of red, yellow, and orange, that is where we have seen the heaviest rain. Sustained winds right now, 36 miles per hour in Sanford, 29 mile per hour winds sustained right now in Leesburg. And look at that, 44 mile per hour winds right now in Cocoa Beach and 52 mile per hour winds right now in Daytona Beach. Now let's head back to Justin and Bridget.
All right, thank you, Julie. And yeah, speaking of Daytona Beach, as we look across central Florida, they're experiencing the highest winds right now. So what better time to go check on Daytona Beach?
Yes, and News 6's Eric Sandoval has been there. He is live in Daytona Beach right now, and I know you've seen so many different changes over the past 24 hours.
Yeah, we have. And, you know, the last hour that we were out here, Bridget and Justin, things had really picked up within that last half hour. At that time, we were actually right at the Sea Breeze Bridge. And I want to make an important note. All of the bridges connecting beachside with mainland Daytona Beach, all of those bridges are now closed because we have sustained winds of over 35 miles an hour. And actually, the Granada Bridge in Ormond has now closed. That happened within the last hour. So those winds are gradually picking up as you go north. I want to step out of the picture just so you can see what these wind gusts are doing to the palm trees here. We are right along Ocean Avenue here, beachside Daytona Beach. And over the last hour and a half, we've steadily seen the blue glow of those transformers blowing in the background. We moved back over here to the Hard Rock Hotel, which is where we're staying, for two reasons. Number one, our safety. But number two, we wanted to basically take advantage, since it's still dark outside, we wanted to take advantage of the light that is here in the portico, so we don't have to get our light stands out and create the possibility of projectiles being blown around in these high gusts. Now, photojournalist Jim Cavanaugh, let's pan over to the garage down here. I want to show you, we are smack dab right against the beach right now, and the wind gusts are sending waves over the beach, but you can see that some of the water, some of the rain, some of the wind is really starting to collect down here in the basement level of the garage here. So we're going to keep watching that, but you know, from our vantage point, we can see the drains working pretty good. And listen to that sound. That is the sound of a water extricator basically trying to vacuum out all of that water as it's collecting here at the Hard Rock Hotel. Again, we do have some power outages reported, but as we made our way back here to the Hard Rock Hotel from over at the Sea Breeze Bridge, we went through some of the neighborhoods. Lots of tree particles, you know, palm fronds on the ground. Lots of water pooling, but not a lot of major flooding, at least not yet. But again, as Troy and Julie have been mentioning, that storm is making its way here north. if you don't have to be out on the streets right now, just don't go. Let us do the job for you and show you some pictures. But if you can safely send us some pictures on Facebook, look me up on Facebook. Send me some pictures. Tell me what your neighborhood is. And when the sun comes up and it's safe to do so, we're going to go venture out to some of these neighborhoods. But again, we're watching the conditions deteriorate right now, and we're hoping that everybody heeds these warnings and stays off the streets and uses their generators properly. Bridget, Justin.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. Be safe. And it's just really amazing when you look at the widespread of wind strengths all across the map, and just there where he is, over 50 miles per hour, and then just south of there down in the Cocoa Beach area where there's that calmness there, which can fool you.
That is the name of the game with these tropical systems as these bands come through, especially off the water with the coast. But, you know, making a point to Eric's point, let's get over to traffic safety expert Trooper Steve. He's with us now. Eric said it best: if you can't be on the road, don't be on the road, but really just don't go, period.
Don't go at all. Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the conditions I'm seeing out here, first, good morning to you guys. I-4 east and westbound, probably some of the best footage that we can get when it comes to our Department of Transportation cameras, because the lights are still on in most of the portions of I-4, and the wind gusts that are coming across here are pretty incredible. There is some flooding right now on I-4, on Lee Road at I-4. I'll step back so you can see a little bit of here. As the wind hits it, it pushes it all up the ramp here a little bit. It's rather interesting to watch because we never see that kind of water in these types of area, which is really intense. This is where I start to get a little irritated. FHP is out on I-4 at 434 with a major crash. They've been out there for several hours because the roadway westbound is completely shut down in this area. There's a crashed car out there. If you do not need to be out on the streets, don't. You are putting so many other people in danger because of this. There are a lot of roadway condition issues out there. So with this heavy rain, the ponding is crazy all over the road. If we or I don't mention your specific area, there's flooding within your area. I can promise you that. So please be careful as you hit the road. This is going to be just north of the downtown area. There is no one out on the streets. My map is picking up the water out on the roadway. So that's how incredibly flooded some of our areas are. We have a lot of traffic lights out all over Central Florida right now. This is going to be the downtown Kissimmee area. Huge reports of issues in downtown Kissimmee. I know we're going to go over to Lewis Bolden in a little bit. He is in the Kissimmee area. Then on the western portions of Four Corners, I'm going to talk about some street lights that are currently out. Expect lights out all over Central Florida. Remember, first to stop, first to go. There are no yielding at this. Treat them as a four-way stop. 27 Kagan Crossing out on the west side, Point Sienna, Orange Blossom Trail, and then this is also construction zones. Our construction zones are going to be flooded up all across Central Florida. Major issues. Our turnpike right now, there is a portion of the turnpike that is underwater. This is the southbound, right at 528. If you're familiar with this area, as southbound goes, you dip under the 528. That area is currently shut down because of heavy water in that area. So please be careful. Sanford, we just saw some issues out in your area, especially out in the historic district. Please be careful. I was trying to get some reports from south of the Lake Mary area. Not as bad, but there are a lot of trees down. I've been checking a lot of my security footage just over at my residence so I could see what's going on. Cannot even see the driveway right now with the amount of trees that are down within the community. Westbound I-4 outside of Orange City, another tree down. There's going to be trees down all across Central Florida. Keep this in mind. Wanted to show you something on all the advisories in Volusia County. This stuff's real serious right now over in Daytona, North New Smyrna. All, like they said, from the A1A coming into the mainland, all the ramps, all the bridges are shut down. I will include Brevard County in that too. If you are out on the coast and you have to cross a bridge, unfortunately, those bridges are shut down. Zooming into the Daytona Beach area, US 1 north and southbound, look at these delays. All popping up all over the place, all shut down. Not here to hype this up. There are no real major injury crashes out there, but roadway conditions are horrible no matter where you're at this morning or this afternoon. So please, until law enforcement gives us the all clear and then we relay it, please just stay at home and hang out with us. Guys, I'm going to send it back to you.
Yeah, great information, Steve. You know, people are, obviously, they get stir crazy. They want to go out, especially if they don't have power or something like that. It's just, you got to just take it easy. When the sun comes up, you're going to notice that it looks different out there.
Right.
And I know you want to assess. And speaking of, here are some power outage numbers statewide. Almost 2.5 million people statewide without power currently. Duke customers, 524,778 FP&L, 1.2 million customers at this point. OUC, 51 and change, and KUA, Kissimmee Utility Authority, a little bit more than 10,000. So
yes,
it's out there, and there are thousands and thousands of linesmen ready to respond to these power outages, which for the most part here in Central Florida, it's not that bad. If you look at the map, really Southwest Florida is going to be the focus, obviously, as they just went through the worst of the worst, and power is going to take a long time to get back on down in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, I mean, and they've had the linemen stationed all over the state, like 30 different sites. They've had them stationed, more than 40,000 linemen, and they urge people, don't touch anything, because you've got the fiber optics out there, which if you try to cut those, then that's major damage that has to be repaired. And so from power to you know, even some of the internet services and all these different things that have been impacted, there's going to be a lot of work to do to get everything back up and running. We do want to check in with our crews some more and see what's going on, but right now we want to check in with Troy. Troy, I'm fascinated by, you know, what's left of the eye that's down there near Cocoa.
Yeah, we're seeing the actual eye centered over South Orange County and northern sections of Osceola County, eventually pushing to the north. In fact, here is the future radar showing just that. As we take you into the next several hours, watch that center of circulation. No longer a defined eye, but certainly there is that center of circulation, and wrapping around that, plenty of moisture, plenty of energy in the form of strong winds and very heavy rain. So as we take you through the time, here you go, 8:30 this morning, we see the bulk of the rain, the heaviest of it, in our northern zones for Flagler County and for Volusia County, with some overspreading rain coming back into Lake Sumter and Marion counties. But again, the bulk of the rain will be in our northern zones as we get into around 11 o'clock this morning there for Flagler and for Volusia, and the beginning to push back out as this is moving to the northeast at about 9 miles per hour. So the future radar showing by 1 p.m. most all of Central Florida beginning to dry out. So we just have a few hours to go, and we'll start to look a lot better, even though we'll have some of those wraparound areas of wind that could stick around, some wind gusts up to tropical storm force as late afternoon. But we will push the bulk of this system out, and then certainly tonight, this whole thing is out of here. So your Friday will shape up to be a much better looking day. There's the radar as we show you the heaviest of the rain right now. Heavy rain in parts of Volusia County, stretching down to Orange County. So from Deltona to Orlando, seeing that heavy rain, even down to Kissimmee, a pocket or two of that heavy rain. We've had plenty of heavy rain in Kissimmee, and that's led to some flooding. And then stretching back north of Titusville on into Mims and even Daytona Beach, some of that heavy rain. So we'll get a brand new advisory coming out as of 5 o'clock this morning. That's going to be in about a half hour, and that will likely show a downgrade. Right now, technically, as of the last advisory at 2 a.m., this is showing winds at 75 miles per hour. We don't see any of those winds as we talk about our wind speeds right now, so we do expect this to be downgraded to a tropical storm. So what are the winds that we're seeing now? These are the sustained winds across Central Florida. It takes 40 mile per hour winds or greater to be tropical storm force winds. We're seeing that in Cocoa Beach. We're seeing 52 mile per hour sustained winds right now in Daytona Beach. Sustained winds right now at 32 miles per hour in Sanford, Orlando at 26 miles per hour, Leesburg at 29. So many areas seeing sustained winds close to, if not well above, tropical storm status. And then these are the gusts up to 40 miles per hour in Leesburg, 54 mile per hour gust in Cocoa Beach, 68 mile per hour gusts being reported or coming in with our sites in Daytona Beach. Now let's talk to meteorologist Julie Broughton. And again, Julie, those winds a big concern as we head into the next several hours. In fact, it'll be later in the afternoon before most of the wind dies down.
Yeah, we're talking about wind and rain, the biggest concerns as we move through the next several hours. Flooding, a big concern for so many folks right now. We're getting reports of some pretty significant flooding in the downtown Kissimmee area and more rain rain is coming down. Here's a look again at those current wind speeds. As Troy was just showing us, 52-mile-per-hour sustained winds in Daytona Beach right now, 33-mile-per-hour sustained winds in Cape Canaveral. As we head farther down the coast to Cocoa Beach, you were looking at 44-mile-per-hour sustained winds. At Orlando International Airport, winds are at 26 miles per hour in Leesburg, still seeing 29-mile-per-hour winds. Kissimmee, 28 miles per hour. So just about all of us dealing with some pretty intense winds out there as we move through the overnight hours and into the morning. It is 4:28 right now. We will be getting updated numbers on Ian coming out any time now. We do expect that with the 5 o'clock advisory that it will be downgraded to a tropical storm. But again, the bottom line is wind and flooding are big problems as we move through the next several hours. As of 2 o'clock this morning, we were still talking about a Category 1 hurricane with winds at 70 miles per hour, 75 miles per hour rather, sustained, and 115 mile per hour wind gusts moving to the northeast at 9 miles per hour. Now here's a look at the radar again, showing you what we're dealing with. All these areas of green showing us where we do have those flood advisories in place. Most of those through the 6 o'clock hour. If the rain continues to keep coming down, which it looks like it will for the next several hours, we're likely looking at those advisories extended. So the live radar showing again as we roll around that center of circulation, some of the heaviest rain right now in southern Volusia County back toward Deltona. Much of Seminole County seeing that very heavy rain stretching through Lake Mary, Longwood, Winter Springs, and back down into western Orange County as well. We will continue to track all of this for you. Now let's head back to the desk with Justin and Bridget.
Julie, thank you. Yeah, a lot of, about an hour ago or so, I guess at this point, we got that warning sent to your phone saying flash flooding,
yes.
a huge concern, an advisory that was sent and probably woke some folks up. But nevertheless, it is a problem. It's been a problem throughout the night as we wake up and we try to gather the new information and what we missed. Really what I've been hearing and from folks who have been up is that there's some really bad flooding happening and continues to come down in Osceola County.
Yes, and we know that, you know, it depends on where you live. It depends on your neighborhood and the topography where you are. And so some neighborhoods have been prepared. Some neighborhoods have been very concerned because they know the history of where they are and some of the problems that pop up. And News 6's Lewis Bolden is in Kissimmee where the flooding is severe in some spots, Lewis.
Yeah, it is severe in some spots, Bridget. We just got here. We're on Orange Blossom Trail between Dunnigan Street and 192, and we drove as far as we could before we had to stop. You can see the water right behind me here. We were traveling down. Corey, if we can pan over here, we had to park in this parking lot right over here. I don't know if you can see the flashers on our car over there, but that's as far as we could drive. And there were some people in the road that were flagging us down, telling us that we probably shouldn't drive any farther down. So we parked there, and then we started to walk. I can tell you that it's actually worse than it looks because we thought that we could walk farther than we could. But as you take a few more feet in this direction, it started to get deeper than I was comfortable walking in. And you see right over to the left there where it says new and used tires. That area is a little bit more elevated, but when you step down from there, the water starts to get a little bit deeper. If you look straight down, we were trying to figure out if that is a car in the road. In the two lanes on the left-hand side, but we can't see it from here, and even with the light on the camera, we can't tell if that's a submerged car. We're pretty sure if you look across the street to the right there in that parking lot, it looks like there are cars in that parking lot. And there is actually a car driving down this direction that I'm trying to wave them to go in the other. Yeah, and they turned around. So we've had a few cars driving down this direction, and there are some people on the corner there that have been flagging people down and advising them to turn around. We're not sure where those people are coming from. I thought earlier they might have been in those cars that look like they're submerged in the parking lot down the street, but I'm not sure. So they've just been walking and now just hanging out in that area. We tried to ask them where they were going. They said they were going to a friend's house. We're not sure why and this time of morning. But I can tell you that these streets are bad. And again, this is Orange Blossom Trail between Dunnigan and 192. And we've got some more people on the right-hand side walking over here. We're not sure where they're coming from. But again, it does look like there are some cars that are submerged in the parking lot on the right side of the street, and it appears to be a car in the street on the left-hand side. Like I said, even with the light from the camera, it's hard to tell, so we'll be able to see a lot more as it gets... Are you guys okay? There, hang on just a... Did you say there are people stuck back there? So if anyone at the station can, I'm sure... You said there are houses filling up? Wait, can you tell us exactly where so we can try to get some help there?
Go around, you're going to see a sheriff's truck, past the sheriff's truck on the left, and you're going to go around, you're going to see an old lady with a tan dress sitting on the porch with a light.
And were you in a car or were you in a house?
I was at a house.
So the house is flooding? Okay, we're gonna, if you guys got that address back at the station, I'm sure they have probably called 911, but okay, perfect. The producers are telling me that we have called 911 because we just heard from people that there is water filling up into a house, that their car is submerged. I believe is the street that they just gave. But now we see why people are out and walking. At least those two people say that their car was submerged and there's water filling up into a house not far from here. And it's easy to see because these roads are pretty bad. As I was saying, we parked in the parking lot right back here. You can see the flashers on our car. And then we drove as far as we could. Then we parked and started to walk. And I can tell you that it is worse than it looks, because when we were on the left side of the street, trying to walk over to that area where it says new and used tires, that's a little bit more elevated, so we thought we could stand over there. But walking through that water got a little deeper than I was comfortable with. Down the way, we did see an emergency vehicle with red and white flashing lights just a while ago, but we can't see them anymore. Perhaps they have tried to go to that area where the people were just telling me that water is getting into a home on Point Siena Circle. And again, when the sun starts to come up in a couple of hours or so, we'll be able to see a lot more. But it does look like there is a car submerged on the left-hand side of the street from where we're standing. Also, when we were on the way here, we were on the turnpike, and we saw that a car, it looked like the car had hydroplaned and was over in a ditch with the flashers on, and it looked like someone had opened the door and perhaps gotten out and walked, and they just had to abandon the car. So it's serious, and if you don't have to be on the roads, definitely don't go out on the roads. And this is as far as we're comfortable going, especially with it being so dark. So we're going to stay here, and as the sun starts to come up and we start to get a little bit more light, we'll be able to see a little bit more, and perhaps we can show you a little bit better what's going on. But again, on Orange Blossom Trail between Dunnigan and 192, you want to avoid this area. We've only seen a couple of cars coming this direction, but there are people a couple of blocks down that are flagging people down, waving them down and telling them to turn around, and thank goodness everyone has been turning around. We haven't seen anyone trying to drive through this water. But again, the people that we just saw walking here said that their car was stuck a few blocks down the road there, and we can see a couple of cars in the parking lots there. Corey, if we can just step out and see if... Yeah, that definitely looks like the top of a car on the right-hand side. I can't see that street sign from here, but it looks like there's a small street on the other side of that white building. And there does appear to be one car, maybe two cars, actually two cars in the parking lot there. And then on the left-hand side of, two, maybe even more than that, Corey, I'm not even sure. You can see the flashing light there. I'm not sure what that is. If that's looks like maybe a warehouse, maybe some kind of business, but where that flashing light is, in fact, below the light, it looks like there are more people walking from that direction. I'm not sure if that's Point Siena Circle. That's where the lady that was walking from a minute ago told us Point Siena Circle, that there's water going into a home. And now we're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like 4 people that are coming from down that street. The water gets deep down there, so we are not going to walk down there. It looks like they're trying to escape from down there. But we are seeing more people walking, and so perhaps they are coming from one of the houses that lady just told us that water is getting into the house. You would certainly wonder why someone is out if you're not an essential worker in these conditions. So perhaps they are, the house that they're in is taking on water. But 1, 2, 3, yeah, it looks like 4 people that are walking toward us now, maybe even 5 people. And when they get a little bit closer, we will see what the situation is and see where they're coming from. But we did get word from our producer that we have called 911. I'm sure if those people are in distress, they have called 911, and we are trying to, what's that, producer? Go ahead and tell me. Okay, we're trying to get Ezzy Castro to that area right now, but I think, looks like there might be a child. Someone is carrying a child on their shoulders. But yeah, this does not look like a good situation. This looks like they're trying to get to dry land, definitely. And it's a group of people, and as they get closer, it looks like someone is carrying a small child on their shoulders, and looks like they might have some bags. So these people appear to be in distress. Again, you wouldn't just be out here unless you're an essential worker or you're trying to escape a bad situation. But as they get closer to us, we'll try to talk to them and get more information about where they're coming from and what they've seen. But you can see how deep the water is, and they're having to stay in the middle of the street because the closer you go to the sides, the deeper it gets. They're actually walking in the median right now, and I'm going to approach them to see if everything is okay. So you guys just hang with me for just a minute. Hello, we're with Channel 6 News. Are you guys okay? Okay, where are you coming from?
Huh?
Where are you coming from?
I'm from Venezuela.
You're from Venezuela?
Yeah.
Okay, where have you guys been?
Yeah, I live neighbors. It's in my house, water everywhere.
Water is in your house. What street is your house on?
Sorry, my English is a little bit not good.
That's okay, but I'm understanding you. So what can you tell me the name of the street that your house is on?
I live in the right now towards over there. The water.
Okay.
But
the water. Is it a single family home? Is it a duplex? Can you tell me?
It's two family.
It's a two-family home, and water came into the house?
Yeah, a lot of water.
And that's why you guys are having to leave right now?
Yeah. Sorry, I need to go. I gotta go.
Okay, I know.
So, you're welcome.
Okay, be careful. And we've got, I don't know if this is an emergency vehicle coming behind us, but this is a truck that is making it through the water right now. And I don't know if they're trying to help these people, but yeah, we just saw a group of people talk to a man with a child on his shoulders, and they said that water was coming into their house. We're trying to get Ezzy Castro to that area. A producer was telling me a minute ago it's going to be hard to get to that area, so it might take her some time. We saw that these people were walking back from that area. One lady told us earlier that it was, but we're trying to get a reporter to that area. It might take some time because you can see those people are leaving that area because it's so bad. But we're going to stay out here and monitor the situation. And again, as the sun comes up, we'll be able to see a little bit better and tell you a little bit more. Right now, we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Lewis. It's really frightening and heart-wrenching to watch those families,
especially in the middle of the night.
That.
In the middle of the night, you can't see anything. You got water in your house, and enough water in your house to force you to leave. And Steve, I know as someone who is from Osceola County, you spent a lot of time in Kissimmee. This is a low-lying area.
Absolutely.
It's a flood-prone area, and it's a tough situation.
I got chills thinking, because I know exactly where Lewis is standing there. So he's north of the downtown Kissimmee area. I have friends friends that are in the downtown Kissimmee area saying it is also flooded within that area. So if you're not familiar with OBT right there, this is some of the oldest portions of the city of Kissimmee. So the residents that have been there and the structures that have been there, it's not the new stuff, guys. This is old structures. So anything starts to happen in this area. We get flooding in that area on a bad thunderstorm. And this is really rough stuff. I have confirmed with for Lewis that is a vehicle that is completely submerged on Orange Blossom Trail within that area. No reports of anybody hurt from that, but there are several vehicles that are still submerged that you can't see, which leads to say, listen, you asked Bridget, and I was sitting here thinking, what's a good answer? What to do if you're forced to get out of your house? I know it's hard, it's easy for me to explain it here, but stay out of the roadway when you're trying to walk. All the water is going to be at the same level, whether you're on the sidewalk or the road, but try to mentally be on the outside of the roadway there. There could be cars, there could be structures, down power lines, other debris out in the road. So I understand these families are trying to get out of there, out of that home, but walking in the center of the roadway would not be the ideal spot to do this.
We're still so far away from sunrise too, so we're under the cover of darkness, trying to figure out there's water, you can't even see how deep it might be. It's just really dangerous to be out there.
And then I'm concerned too about the wildlife also. We've got to think about that. There is pictures from South Florida. We've got,
I mean, Lake Tahoe's right there.
You're reading my mind, man. Listen, these gators there are big. You do not want to be in this water. They're going to explore too. The situations out there are fluid. They are all over the place. We've got first responders out on crashes right now on certain scenes. So if you can stay home, stick with us. We're staying in here. Believe it, we don't want to be out there either. So just stay at home as much as possible. I don't know how much other stuff we want to get into before we get to weather. If we want to talk about the do's and don'ts of after the storm, I'm not sure.
I mean, as the sun comes up, obviously this storm will be a little bit farther. So some of our western counties are going to have decent conditions when the sun comes up, and they're going to want to assess and do what they want to do and check on their properties.
Slow is best, I'm suggesting.
But and to that point, you know, most of the injuries, most of the deaths from a hurricane happen afterwards or before a hurricane as people prepare, but really afterwards. And that's, you just have to be cautious. And if you have any sort of gut feeling about whether or not you should go into this deeper portion of a road that might be flooded, let's go with the don't do that.
Because it only takes a few inches.
Right, 3 inches, believe it or not, to move a car. 3 inches of water. And now we're dealing with several feet of water. We've seen structures move down the road. And if you think you're going to be able to just cross the road, there are currents, believe it or not, within our area, because if water's got to go somewhere, anybody could be swept up. Start slow. I know we're all urging to get outside.
There's a hospital near that area where Lewis
Advent
and
Health Kissimmee is in that area.
Do we try to get to somewhere like that? Call 911, call 311? Like, what are the sort of the best?
If you're going to vacate your house because of the emergency, let someone know. Just don't do it. I would recommend calling 911. I'd also recommend notifying a family member. Hey, look, this is what we've got going on. Have a rally point set up. This is stuff that we should have thought about before, but even now, look, if you're going to get out of your home, know where you're going. Have an idea. It is your home. You should be familiar with the area. Say, okay, look, the street's flooded. Let's try to make it up to the front of the neighborhood if that's where you're going to go. But understand where you're going, because if your party might get separated, you and someone else.
Talk to your neighbors.
Right, it's scary. Your kids might be nervous, pets, stuff like that. Slow and methodical. I understand that this stuff is stressful, but at the end of the day, stress distracts. So zone in a little bit. Most of the heavy stuff, like Troy's been talking about, is getting ready to slowly make its way out in a couple of hours at least.
And I think you have to just imagine if Lewis, being out there for 5-10 minutes, however long his report was, and he ran into 2 families. There are certainly more. 2 families in that area where he was that he spotted, talking to him saying, I have water in my house that forces me to leave. It got to that point. It's not just a leak or something. This is at a point where I can no longer be in my house. I have to leave. If he ran into 2 people that have that, you have to imagine that it's an entire neighborhood, maybe more. So listen, Kissimmee, let's get over to meteorologist Troy Bridges as we continue to talk about the weather and the track, Troy. When it came through Central Florida, obviously Osceola County, downtown Kissimmee, it was right through there.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have these spiraling bands. Look at all these deep reds. This is a couple of inches, possibly 3 inches of rain an hour coming down, and that's going to continue until we get that center of circulation offshore. And even after that, we're going to be dealing with tropical storm force wind gusts in some spots. So we've got several hours to go. And again, we have a couple of hours before sunrise before you can really see what kind of damage is out there and how much flooding we do have. The main concerns are going to be flooding and these winds, sustained winds at tropical storm force. But let's show you the rain. You can see these deeper reds now. That's where the heaviest rain is coming down. And again, stretching from Kissimmee, but right now, because it's happening in spiraling bands, we're seeing more of this heavy rain just to the north. So right now, seeing it for Winter Springs to Lake Mary, Sanford, back to Altamont Springs, Winter Park, and Lockhart. So many of these areas will see the same band of rain just spiral around. We'll get a little break, and then more of it begins to push in. Now, eventually, as the entire system pushes to the north, we'll begin to see a lot of this begin to push into northern zones. So more of Volusia County, more of Flagler County will get it. So the heaviest of the bands right now in these zones for Seminole County, Orange County, and part of Volusia County. There's Deltona about to see some of the heaviest of the rain pushing in with this band, and you can see it down to Sanford as well as Lake Mary again and into Winter Springs. More to the north, but not quite as heavy, but it's on your doorstep for areas like Orange City as well as DeLand and again Deltona. You're right now seeing the beginning of those heavier downpours where the red is. Again, up to 3 inches of rain an hour possible coming down in some of these spots, and because it's coming down over and over, that's what's leading to the flooding. All these green polygons, those are the flood advisories that are in effect for a large part of Central Florida. Port Orange to Ponce Inlet, seeing those pockets of heavy rain moving onshore. We're seeing more of that in New Smyrna Beach, Edgewater, on down to Oak Hill. Between Edgewater and Oak Hill, very heavy rain coming down where you're seeing those deeper reds. It's a little lighter, but not by much north of that region. For Ormond Beach to Holly Hill to Daytona Beach to South Daytona Beach, Port Orange, that's where we're seeing some moderate to at times heavy rain. But you can see this spiraling motion. We talked earlier about that risk of tornadoes. It is lower, much lower, because what we're seeing is that right front quadrant where the dirty side is, where the likelihood of tornadoes is, to be out to sea for the most part. You see all these spiraling storms. They look a lot more ragged, a lot more intense than what we're seeing move onshore. Now, that doesn't mean we can't see one or two rotating cells, but we have not seen that over the past several hours, which is good news. So the tornado threat, very low. Our main threats are going to be flooding concerns as well as those stronger winds. So again, back down to Kissimmee, you're finally getting a little bit of a break from the heaviest of the rain as the entire center of circulation continues to push slowly to the north at about 9 miles per hour. So Kissimmee still seeing light rain, a few pockets of moderate rain just to the north of Kissimmee on in to Oak Ridge and to Orlando. So Orlando north is where we're seeing some of the heaviest of the rain. Still some pockets in Mims and in Titusville, down to Merritt Island, where there will be 1 or 2 heavier downpours, but for the most part, it's light to moderate. And for central and southern, especially southern Brevard, we have seen a lot of that fairly light rain. And you can see the center of circulation just off to the west of what we're seeing right now in this area. So we're going to see more of that spiraling motion where that rain continues to push in, at least light rain for southern sections and central sections of Brevard County. So there you go for Satellite Beach to Melbourne and Palm Bay down to Grant, Valkyria, and Mico, some of that light rain. But the heaviest moving through Deltona on down to Apopka and downtown Orlando, stretching back over to areas north of Titusville, approaching eventually Daytona Beach. So we'll see more of these heavier downpours. What about the winds? The winds will continue on through later this afternoon, even once we begin to push this entire system out to sea. Now, it is 4:51. We are still waiting for the 5 a.m. advisory, and we do expect this to downgrade, still showing a Category 1, barely though, Category 1 hurricane with winds at 75 miles per hour on top of us. By 5 a.m., we do think that this will be downgraded to a tropical storm, but either way, we know we've got heavy rain and strong wind on top of us. So the cone, the 5 a.m. advisory, not expecting any great information about any big changes. It's just going to be the same system spiraling around and then eventually pushing off. So here's the timing of when we expect this to begin to push out. And it may start to pick up some speed. Now, that would be some good news to get at the 5 o'clock shock advisory. But taking you through 6:30 this morning, you see that center of circulation beginning to push into orange, mainly orange and Seminole, and then north of there on into southern Volusia County. By 9 this morning, the bulk of the rain in our northern counties, that's Flagler and Volusia, would still wrap around rain moving into our western sides for Lake Sumter, Marion, and also western Orange County. And then eventually by 1 p.m., the bulk of the rain does push out to sea, and it gets a lot better, but still some of that wraparound rain pushing into coastal zones of Volusia and Flagler. So it'll take a while before we get it all the way out of here. But Julie, as we bring in Julie Broughton, most of the heaviest rain by around 1, possibly even noon, beginning to push up and away, although I do still have concerns for Flagler and for Volusia at that point.
Yeah, so still seeing that heavy rain. And also, we are still talking about strong winds. Just seen on the National Weather Service chat that Orlando Sanford Airport just reported a 59-mile-per-hour wind gust. So those winds still definitely out there. Again, going back to the live radar for you, we're not seeing a whole lot of lightning out there, and that's pretty typical with tropical systems. We don't often see a lot of lightning, but we are seeing a whole lot of rain. The heaviest rain from Daytona Beach south down through areas like Deltona. Much of Seminole County still seeing those pockets of heavier rain, and that extends back toward areas like Apopka as well, down toward Winter Garden, also over into Lake County, seeing some lighter rain, but you'll notice those rain bands just keep wrapping around that same area, and so that will be the case for us for the next couple of hours with those pockets of heavier rain. Now, as we said, Orlando Sanford Airport just reported a 59-mile-per-hour wind gust. We've seen wind gusts up to 51 miles per hour in Leesburg, 47-mile-per-hour winds in Daytona Beach. That needs to be updated because we have seen some higher gusts, and 67-mile-per-hour wind gusts for those of you in Melbourne, and we'll continue to keep those strong winds in the forecast for at least the next couple of hours. Here's the future radar. Now we are coming up on 5 o'clock. Again, we will get a new update on Ian coming out in a few minutes, and we do expect that to be downgraded to a tropical storm. But still, notice as we move into the 10 o'clock hour with the clock there at the top of your screen, still some heavy rain, especially in our northern coastal areas like Daytona Beach up into Flagler County, and we'll still see some rain wrapping around into our interior counties as well. At that time, we'll continue to see Ian moving off to the north and east. We'll get an update on the speed. So as Troy was saying, we're certainly hoping that it has picked up some forward motion to get it out of here sooner. But by 3 o'clock, we begin to see a lot of that rain ending, and then we clear things out overnight and into tomorrow. So we will be looking a whole lot better on that. Now, here's a look at our sustained wind speeds right now. Winds are sustained at 24 miles per hour in Orlando. Up in Ocala, our Marion County friends, you are seeing 20-mile-per-hour sustained winds. But look at that, Daytona Beach. Your winds right now are in the low 50s. Again, that is sustained 52 miles per hour, 44-mile-per-hour winds in Cocoa Beach, and 25-mile-per-hour winds in Melbourne. So again, our advisory still not out for 5 o'clock. This is still the 2 a.m. advisory. So at that time, we were talking about a Category 1 hurricane. Again, that new update will come out at any moment. And then we're continuing to see those winds off to the northeast at 9 miles per hour, rather than motion off to the northeast at 9 miles per hour. We will go back and check and see if that update is coming in. But for now, we'll send it back to Justin and Bridget.
All right. Thank you, Julie. We certainly hope that it is downgraded sooner rather than later, because that will mean a little bit lower winds and just hopefully things just sweep on out of here.
Nevertheless, it's going to be windy and it's going to be rainy for the next several hours.
We don't need any more rain.
I know.
But we've been getting reports of damage from Ian from all across Florida, especially, of course, Southwest Florida, which was hardest hit.
Some of the videos just incredibly sad. And reporter Vic Michelucci from our sister station in Jacksonville, he's in Sarasota County, where Ian's winds caused serious damage.
Hurricane Ian was a powerful storm, devastating for so many. Now it's moving out of this area of Southwest Florida. We're only getting some of the outer bands, but we're getting our first look at some of the damage. This is in the city of Northport, where winds continued to whip on homes and businesses for hours. We can see straight into this mobile home. The awning fell onto this vehicle here. Now I want to walk you to this one where you can see the damage is even worse. Most of this home has been knocked down just to the foundation right here. The foundation staying because that is brick. Just about everything else torn away by these strong 150-mile-an-hour plus hurricane winds. We were sheltering nearby at a fire station, and firefighters told us they were concerned because so many people in their area decided not to evacuate. And when they called 911, fire rescue, police, and the sheriff's office were not able to respond because the winds were just too high. So for about 7 hours, people were left to fend for themselves. This morning, there are about 150 911 calls that Northport police and firefighters have to catch up on. They are going door to door to check to see if anyone is inside, to look to see if anyone is hurt or potentially trapped. That could take hours. They are working into the night, and they say that the sunlight will actually help them out survey the damage more. But as you can see, if this mobile home park is just a small glimpse of the area, we know that damage is going to be extensive and devastating, and a lot of people are going to be spending the rest of the week without a home to go to. Of course, as soon as the sun comes up, we'll know much more. But for now, we are in Northport. I'm Vic Michelucci. Back to you.
All right, so we do have some new video coming in. This is from a Sanford, a Seminole County restaurant here. Damage at a restaurant. News 6's Troy Campbell. He walked us through the damage at St. John's River Steak and Seafood earlier this morning. Take a look at that awning there. That's right on a Palmetto Avenue, right off Lake Monroe. He said he saw what looked like a mangled awning. You can see it there, blown into the entranceway, just completely torn apart right there and just mangled a little bit. He also saw strong winds, water moving up from Lake Monroe. That's always a concern. Of course, once the business owner and first responders get to that scene, we'll work to bring you more details on the damage. But that's a sad situation, and it's not the only one in Central Florida. As Ian continues to churn and continues to bring those tropical storm force winds, which are sustained, as Troy and Julie have been telling us, that, I mean, listen, if relatively speaking, if we're trying to compare here to what happened in Southwest Florida, yeah, it may seem like it's not that big of a deal, but tropical storm force sustained winds is a big deal. And the amount of rain that is falling, also a very big deal, and it's impacting so many people, as we saw from Kissimmee, all over Central Florida. If you're in a low-lying area, if you get flooding from an afternoon thunderstorm, and really a lot of ponding from an afternoon thunderstorm, you're in a bad situation right now.
Right, and a lot of those storms move through so much faster. This thing's still tracking by just at a creep of like 9 miles per hour, so still dumping so much rain. So it's just not really worth it. We want to get over to traffic safety expert Trooper Steve. We've been looking at these shaking cameras, Steve, and so much rain out there. I just saw a big rig go by behind you.
It's crazy. The weather out here is pretty intense, and then the traffic north and southbound. But I do know we have priority news, and we do things a certain way here. The 5 a.m. advisory is out, so I'm going to toss over to my brother, your morning meteorologist, Troy Bridges. Sir, what you got for us?
This has weakened, even though the icon hasn't picked it up yet, it has weakened as we expected with the new 5 a.m. advisory to tropical storm status. The winds right now at 65 miles per hour, still gusting technically at 75 miles per hour within the center of that storm. But this is the 5 a.m. advisory, and yes, the cone has, of course, shifted it off to the east, and the cone has also picked up on that tropical storm icon. So no longer hurricane force winds. We're talking about a tropical storm, which is what we expected. We've been talking about that for the past several minutes, really the past couple of hours. We will eventually see the bulk of this rain push up and out of the way, but again, now it is technically a tropical storm. You see all of these green polygons. These are the flood advisories. We have some flash flood warnings in effect. The Little Wekiva River having some extreme flooding possibilities. They are talking about people evacuating now in some of those spots. We're hearing that come over our feed here in the Weather Center. So again, rain a big concern. I'm going to zoom into some of those areas where the heaviest of the rain is. And again, the heaviest of the rain, where you're seeing those deeper reds on the screen there, and where you see that blinking, that's going to be that flash flood that we're talking about. For Altamont Springs to Winter Springs and then back down, we're seeing